What a kind of bizarrely entertaining episode. Hi, hello, it is your least favorite Drag Race content creator, Jer, back to talk about Canada versus the World, episode 5. I can't believe that this is the end of the season. Let's get into it. First off, we're in top 5, which feels a little bonkers that we're only in episode 5. This feels like such a fever dream of a season, like season 8, which was like 6 episodes or something. It was so short and went by so fast. And it makes me sad that Canada's Drag Race doesn't trust itself enough to appeal to the global audience, that it can't bring in maybe 3 or 4 more queens. Because could you have imagined if this was a 12-person cast? Get 3 more queens in there and buff out the episodes just a little more? With a 12-season cast, they could have done a lip sync Lollapalooza and done a SmackDown for people to come back in the competition, a la season 4, which didn't really end up doing anything. But I wish that the producers of Canada's Drag Race trusted this franchise more, because this has been probably one of my favorite seasons of all time. I've really loved the contestants, I loved the challenges, I loved the execution, the runways, the judging. Everything has felt really fresh. And in a market of oversaturation of Drag Race, that's important. And I wish we just got a little more. Maybe brought in someone from España, someone from Down Under, and maybe an Italia queen, or even a Thailand queen. And this would have been even more phenomenal than it already was. So this episode is Snatch Game the Rusical. Snatch Game is one of those challenges that is a little bit dull at this point. It's like a sword that's been used too much. I'm thinking of like Breath of the Wild, you know what I mean? It's starting to dull to a point that it's about to break. And I think we as the audience feel really mixed about Snatch Game. On one hand, we love it. We want to keep seeing it. We want to see their celebrity impersonations. We don't want to see a flat drag character who can only do one thing. But on the other hand, Snatch Game is so weak and kind of unfunny and a lot of cringe content that it gets to be hard to watch. So repurposing Snatch Game into a Rusical and making it a little more complicated is very fun. That being said, I don't know if this particular Snatch Game went the way that it could have. We have Alexis Mateo doing Ron to Satan, but she decided to make it a baby character, which I thought was a little bit of an odd choice. Not really, I thought it was a very odd choice. We've seen kid characters done on the show before, and it goes back and forth. This was slightly less cringe than Aurora Matrix doing that baby character, but it wasn't nearly as bad as what the Vixen did. But it wasn't quite near as funny as what Eureka did. Kid characters are always really hard to do, and I wish that Alexis would have just done the adult version of him, because I think a lot of her jokes were really funny. And I think they could have been more funny if she was playing an adult. Plus, I don't know if the costume really lent itself to what they were doing. I will say Alexis was such an icon for not understanding what vaudeville was, and because of her accent calling it botville, I think it's tacky to make fun of people's accents. I don't think that's okay, and I'm glad that nobody did. I love that Alexis understands that she has an accent and doesn't try and whitewash or code switch in order to appeal to people, like the way that Nikki Doll had to kind of code switch when she was talking about hummus. I'm glad that Alexis doesn't code switch. I think she leans into her Puerto Rican-ness, and I love that. So Alexis's role was the opener, the person who explains what Snatch Game is. I don't know if that was necessary. I don't think that we needed a character to tell us how to do Snatch Game. While I appreciated the MC narrator role, because that is a very Broadway trope, I don't think it was necessary because we as the audience know what Snatch Game is. They as queens know what Snatch Game is. This is an all-star adjacent. We don't need to go into all of the little pieces of Snatch Game. Plus, I think it really pulled away from her character. The out of sitting scenes were supposed to be them as queens. And I don't know if that role would have been funny with anybody. And I wish that that had been scrapped, and maybe I would have even been okay with like a Good Morning Baltimore type situation. Like, hello, Snatch Game. There's Kennedy looking in 2 directions again. That would have been maybe funny instead of the MC role. I will say her vocals were incredible. And in my opinion, this is the 3rd time that Alexis has gotten put into bottom 3 unnecessarily. I said last week, and I'll say it again, Alexis was in the bottom week 1 because her group sucked. But she was the best. And if it was judged individually, she could have been very high up there. In the duo situation from the roast, it was you're either in the top or in the bottom, and you're being judged with your teammate. And this week, if you didn't win or you're lemon, you're not in the bottom. I thought her performance in the Rusical was really strong. So I didn't agree again with this bottom placement, but the rules of the Beaver are in place, so I just think that Alexis's track record is not as bad as the show has it, in the same way that I don't think Fierce's was either. Lemon's part was really fierce, and I love that she referenced getting so litty that she split her kitty. That was hysterical to me. I thought her character was really funny and her accent was hilarious. She did a good job at nailing that character and really making Susan Boyle pow. In some ways, it kind of makes me wish that this was an authentic, real Snatch Game, because that would have been a really funny performance to watch. Fierce got a Vogue part, like literally Vogue the Madonna song, and it was so cool. It was fierce. I thought her rhythm was nice. I thought her performance was nice. I thought her vocals sounded good. Her character was a little bit flat. I don't think it was bad, but I don't think it was like wow either. I don't think I'm gonna remember it in like a year from now. Her talking about the bazillion characters that we've had throughout Snatch Game was so cool. I loved that part, but much like Alexis's, it didn't really fit in with the rest of the Rusical. There were other parts of this that referenced actual Broadway tropes, and this one was just being fabulous, like it belonged in a different Rusical. It was still really cool, but I don't know if it belonged in this one with the other parts that existed. Then we move on to Kennedy Davenport, and she was playing Tabitha Brown, which, if I'm not mistaken, Olivia in season 13 also did Tabitha Brown, and it was a flatline, proving once again that Kennedy does not watch any of the seasons beyond her own. I would definitely say this was kind of on par with how bad Olivia's was. Olivia had more opportunities to be cringe, so she was. I did think that her, as you know, I have a seasoning, so I wrote down seasoning, was really funny. It reminded me of this old Food Network meme that I saw that said, I saw the hot dogs in the basket, and so I decided to make hot dogs. It was just really ironically funny. The whole answer segment for this part of Snatch Game was really unfunny. Like, everyone bombed, and they did shady music and panned to the judges like cringing, but I felt like that was supposed to be part of what this segment was, because Kennedy's song was a Chicago style, we've all done badly, we all messed up, and we had it coming that we're in the bottom now. This was probably my favorite song, and had Kennedy known any of the words, it would have been so fierce to watch. Kennedy's got this problem anytime that there's lip syncing and choreography. She doesn't really know one or the other. Either she's got all the lyrics but none of the choreography, like we saw in All Stars 3, or she's got the choreography and none of the lyrics, like we saw in Glamazonian Airways and in this. And kind of also in Tongue Pop. My favorite part though was Brooke looking at Brad like this, and then Brad looks at her like this. It was so good. Oh, that fucked me up. But yeah, this part was all about how the Snatch Game bombed. So I thought that's why everybody wrote cringe answers, because they weren't supposed to be funny. Regardless, Cheryl and Lemon were a little bit funny, but I didn't go like, haha. I was just like, huh. Cheryl was the final part, and it was all about blaming production. This was very fierce coded. It was easily the best written part of the musical. And that leads me to what my ultimate problem was that this felt imbalanced. I love a Rusical. I love them. I love scripted challenges, but every script has to be just as funny and bombastic, regardless of who's doing it. Yes, Cheryl understood that her role was supposed to be really camp, so she camped up her vocals, she camped up the performance, she really went huge on everything. And not to say that everybody else didn't, but they were playing it more like an authentic musical, because those parts were written to be more of an authentic musical. Fierce, Kennedy, and Lemon were meant to be stand, pose, act, sickening. Alexis was a little more like, woo, we're silly, we're having a good time. Keep the energy up, get that energy up, set the bar really high. And then Cheryl is the showstopper. I'm here to make it clear, I know you love me, baby, that's why you brought me here. And that is imbalance to the others. How do you judge fairly someone who is doing silly, 3 people who are doing fabulous, and 1 person who's doing hysterical? I think in drag, you're always gonna gravitate towards the person that made you laugh the most. And so it makes judging on everything kind of unfair. That being said, I felt like everybody got really positive, good critiques. I really enjoyed that nobody was getting anything harsh. We're so close to the finals, and I don't think it's productive to get in their heads and make them feel bad about anything at this point, because we need a good final episode show. So then it brings us to the runway, my favorite part every single week. The challenge is Summer of 69. This was a brilliant concept. Theming a runway around a year, proving that Canada's Drag Race, once again, is always thinking outside of the Drag Race Zeitgeist box. That little pink furry box that RuPaul loves, that doesn't really ever explore outside of that and outside concepts. I would love to see RuPaul pick gemstones, to pick a year, to pick a decade even. Let's do that in mainline Drag Race, because this was such a cool concept. So we have Alexis doing a mod look, and if y'all remember in All Stars 1 there was a 60s glam runway, so I really loved that this was very different while kind of maintaining the same dress silhouette. Really upscale, beautiful. I loved this Kool-Aid color. She looked jaw-dropping. So beautiful and stunning and gorgeous, and I think this is probably the prettiest I've ever seen Alexis look makeup-wise. Then Lemon came out in a look that made my mouth drop open. I had to go grab my partner, have him come over and watch it because it was so good. The black and white with the ruby slippers was beautiful. I loved how Lemon made it really draggy and princess-like by adding the extra ruffles and making it so much bigger at the bottom. Using that black and white gingham, the veil to cover up the fact that the makeup wasn't totally seamless was really nice. I don't know what Lemon did with her face, but she looked really doe-eyed. And even in Untucked, she always looked like she was gonna cry. And that's something that Judy Garland very much looked like when she was younger. She always had these doe-like eyes that always looked like they were about to tear up at any moment. I will say the makeup was not flawless. It was kind of clunky. It was a little chunky. I'm guessing that probably she ran out of time, but also that white was really stark, and if it had maybe been a lighter color or mixed with something that was a little more flesh toned or a little more grayscale, I think it would have looked less like ghostly. Can I say on an unrelated note, something that I don't like about current Drag Race, and especially on Canada's Drag Race, is that there's this phenomenon where the queen will come out and they'll flash to a judge going, and I don't like being primed on how I'm supposed to feel about the runway. I want to be able to just enjoy the look. I want to be able to look at it and have my own moment. I want to pearl clutch on my own. I want to grab my pearls and I want to clutch them. I don't want to be primed on how I'm supposed to feel about it before I even get to see them come down the runway. And Lemon in this black hair in particular was so beautiful. Times in the past where Lemon's worn black hair, it's usually long Cher hair. And something about length on Lemon doesn't look very good, but I loved this sculptural hair. And I wish that she would do black more in this silhouette because it was beautiful. Next out is Miss Fabulicious doing an alien look. And what is so brilliant about this alien astronaut is that if you remember the Even Stevens episode where we went to the moon in 1969, this was brilliant. That's why theming something around a year is so smart, because you can dig in and find something historical and do a drag riff off of that. I really loved this color. I thought the jewel tone was beautiful. And I think that Fierce looked incredible. The prosthetic eyeball that she had as her third was very, very fun. I love seeing Fierce's brain work through these challenges and through these runways. And I have not been disappointed with anything Fierce has done throughout this season. It is very sad to see her go, that she now has to rebrand to Miss Fifalicious after her second rebrand this season from being Miss Fabulicious. But this was a great run for her. And honestly, I wasn't sure how far she was gonna go, so I'm glad that she went this far. And now that I've said those words, it's kind of sad that she went home on how far I'll go. Next out is Kennedy Davenport giving us Black Excellence. She looked beautiful, loved the hair, loved the height of this look. It'll be interesting to see what happens next, because Kennedy got the beaver this week. And do I think that it was deserved? According to the rubric we've been using all season of going against the best? Sure. But I also don't think that Kennedy earned either one of those wins. I think those went rightfully to other people. The first win should have gone to Lemon and the second win should have gone to Cheryl. So at this point, in my personal opinion, I think Kennedy's performed the weakest out of this group on a whole, right next to Fierce, and Alexis has just been in the bottom a lot because there's nobody in this cast. If we had maybe 3 more queens, I don't know if Alexis would have placed bottom in as many categories. And finally is Cheryl, doing probably the most basic look of everybody on the runway, and she didn't look bad, it was just really low-key compared to everyone. The color was a bit muted, the makeup was really nice, the hair was beautiful, and that was kind of my issue, is that it got prettier as you got higher, and it was very Instagram box type drag. And while she looked period accurate and nice, it was just low-key. Lemon was the winner, and I honestly agree because it came down to the runway. I think this was another week where Cheryl was really close, but her fashion just didn't get her there. Cheryl's fashion has been so hit and miss. One week she does really good, and then the next week she's a little off-brand Primark. And then the next week it's fine, and then the next week it's this again. But I mean, what can you do when you're competing against powerhouses like Lemon? So at top 5, I would change my strategy and I would play really strategic. I would not save someone who I think was doing the best. I would try to knock one of them out at this point. So at this point for me, knowing that we're going into the finals, I would try to get somebody out of the competition that's a threat. I would choose Alexis and Kennedy to lip sync and I would have saved Fierce, knowing that she wasn't gonna win. And I would have gotten one of the Americans out and I would have let them battle it out. Do I like that we're playing a really fair competition? Absolutely. It sucks to see someone who's doing well go home right before the end, but life's not fair, as Naomi once put it. And so I would have played strategic at this point in the game. And I think if Cheryl had won, I think easily Fierce would have been saved and I think Kennedy would have been out this week. Because I don't know if Kennedy would have been able to lip sync to this song the way that Alexis did. This performance reminded me of that Fantasia lip sync where Alexis was ethereal in her performance of that song in season 3, embodied this beautiful, soft, angelic energy. And I'm just constantly reminded why I stan Alexis Mateo so much, because she is that girl. So going into the finale, who are you rooting for? I'm obviously Alexis Mateo's biggest stan and I want her to win so bad, but I really feel like it's gonna be Lemon just based off of her trajectory and track record. I don't see them not crowning a Canadian this time around. And I mean, if it comes down to lip sync battles, let's say that Lemon and Kennedy are against each other somehow. Kennedy is fully out. And if Cheryl and Alexis go together, Cheryl's out. So if it is an Alexis versus Lemon situation, I could see production leaning on the Lemon side because she's got a better track record and she's Canadian. It's not like Raja where she really dominated the whole competition, had a couple lows but deserved that win rightfully. Now let's say it's shaken up where it's maybe Kennedy versus Cheryl. I feel like it could be Cheryl. And then if it's Lemon versus Alexis, that could go either way depending on the song they do. And they'd have to do some type of editing situation like a Monet and Jinx to make it seem like Alexis did worse than Lemon, because I know that she would eat up whatever song she was in. Alexis knows how to perform in lip sync. She embodies songs, and Lemon knows how to perform and be dynamic and grab your attention. So that could be a fantastic lip sync no matter what happens. Really excited to see who wins next week, and I'm so excited to see all the girls come back and see their final runways, and I hope they bring their best, because sometimes in All Stars, I feel like they bring an alternate. They don't bring their finale gown. What did you think of this episode? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you on the flip. Hey, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to click that like button. And if you want to see more, hit subscribe. Goodbye.